Hi, this is Brandon Moon with Leland Fly Fishing. I want to welcome you to our fly tying night tonight. Tonight we're going to be tying up another one of our favorite purple flies that we use. Okay, this is the Purple Haze soft hackle nymph. This is tied on a jig hook with a slotted tungsten bead. You can see that the body's got great definition. The tail's going to be nice and split, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but those legs really protrude right out the side of the abdomen. So this is a really cool looking fly, and we're going to get started with that tonight. So for our hook, we're going to be using the Moonlit ML058 in a size 14. The number 14 is our go-to size. We can tie this smaller or larger depending on what we need, but 14s are great in our rivers, and our small streams are a great size as well. So for the bead, we're going to use a 3.0 millimeter Fluoro purple slotted tungsten from Moonlit as well. For our thread, we're going to use a 12/0 classic waxed Semperfli classic wax purple thread. Okay, we like the classic waxed. It's a single strand twist. It's going to lay flat, not build up a lot of bulk, and it's extremely strong for its diameter. So you can see this is the purple thread. I use the Norvise tying system. This is our automatic bobbin. You can see it's just amazing tension there. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and start this fly today, and we're going to start it right there on the back side of the bead. I'm going to create a little bit of a bulge there to kind of help hold that bead in place so that it doesn't rear itself backwards, and then I'm going to go and move forward. I'm going to create my underbody. I hold this tag end at a 45-degree angle, and this is so I can create a nice smooth underbody. That tag end at 45 degrees is going to help push each wrap up into the previous wrap. Okay, now I've got a nice smooth underbody. I'm going to trim that off. Now I use the biots for the tail, and as you saw in the first fly, the legs protrude outwards, and the way that I do that is I create a nice little bulge in the butt here. Okay, and I'm going to use this Vicuna dubbing. It's alpaca dubbing from the UK. This is a great hare's ear substitute. Awesome colors, easy to dub. I'm going to be using the UV purple right here. Okay, so I'm going to take and put some Wonder Wax. This is my favorite wax to use on my thread. I'm going to take and put just a small amount, and the reason I put the wax on there is that's going to help bind this dubbing onto that thread, and this is too much. Okay, I do not need that much. I really just need a very, very small, fine amount. Okay, so there I've got my dubbing. I'm going to create a very small, tight noodle on there. Now I'm just going to wrap this right at the bottom of that bend. Okay, so this is at the base of that bend, and that's going to make it so that when I tie this tail in, it's going to flare out my legs. For the tail on this, we're going to be using Semperfli's black goose biots. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 of those off. You can tie each of these legs in together, or you can tie them in individually. Personally, I prefer to tie them in separately. I feel like I have a little bit more control over them that way. Okay, so I'm going to take, and these biots have a little bit of a natural curvature to them, and I want that curvature to go naturally away from the hook because I'm trying to flare these out. Okay, so I'm going to take and I'm going to measure this, and I want this tail to be the length of the hook shank. So I'm going to take and wrap and tie that in. You can see that goes and slides, slid down a little bit further. I want this right on that square side of that hook shank. Okay, so you can see my tail's kind of protruding outwards. I'm just going to give that a good couple wraps to really tighten that in. I like to lock that one in place, go in front of it, and then back to where I tied that in. Now I'm going to get the second tail by it. Okay, again, I'm going to measure it with that point going away from the fly. It's going to be about a hook shank in length, and I want that right on the side again. Okay, I just take and maneuver that so that it stays where I need it to be. Now I'm just going to secure those in. Now that I've got that secured in nice, I'm going to take and trim these biots, and I'm going to trim it so that it's just behind that bead. Okay, you can see I kind of pinch those together so that I can get a good bind on them. Now I'm just going to kind of smooth out that body again because I want a nice smooth underbody. It's important to the proportions on this fly, or any fly for that matter that you're tying. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the bend of the hook where I'm going to start my body. For my body, I'm going to use a Nature Spirit turkey biot in purple. Okay, you can see I've tied and used a lot of these. These are all for my size 14 and larger on this side. If I'm 16 and smaller, I use the ones on this side. They're longer, but they're also thinner for a smaller body fly. Okay, so I'm going to take one of these off. Now, the nice thing to do with these biots is beforehand, you're going to want to moisten them up so that they're in a damp paper towel in a little glass of water. They're brittle, so you want that moistened biot so that they're going to wrap better. Okay. Now, if you lay this against there, you're going to see a ridge. Okay, and then you're going to see a black spot. I want that ridge to be on the back side of my hook, the butt side, and the black part of that, I want that on the right, towards the front of my hook. So if I'm going to tie this in, you can see this point here, I want that kind of facing rearward. Now I'm just going to tie this in. I can wrap behind there one time to kind of help stand that up just a little bit, just like I can with my hackle. Okay, I'm going to wrap that forward just a little bit. Now I'm going to trim that biot tip out, secure it all the way in. I'm going to create a little bit of a taper with my thread. Not a big one, I want a pretty slim profile, but I do want a little bit of a taper. Now I'm going to half hitch this just behind the bead of the hook. So now I'm going to take my hackle pliers and I'm going to take this biot. Now I'm going to take and wrap that. So I start it manually, and now I'm going to take my rotary feature. I'm going to wrap this, and this is going to give me a nice, smooth, even wrap. It's going to help give a nice, even proportion taper. I'm going to wrap that all the way up into that bead so that the black side of that is all the way up in the bead, and this is going to give me room to make sure that I got a nice body through there before I put in my abdomen. I don't want to create my body too short, so I always wrap my body further up than what it needs to be. Now I can take that biot tip and bind it down. My body's going to be roughly 3/4 of my fly, and then the last quarter is going to be my abdomen, legs, and my hackle collar. Okay, so just like I did with my tail, I want to put a little bit of dubbing down here on this. Okay, so I put my wax in, and then I'm going to grab a very small pinch of dubbing again. Okay, just like before, I'm gonna create a little noodle, just enough so that I can create a little bit of a wrap and a bulge there. Okay, now I'm going to take and invert this fly. Where it's a jig hook, hook point's going to ride up, so the top of my fly is going to be up here. So unlike a traditional Prince nymph or a copper john where you tie this in after you've dubbed your thorax, I'm going to put these in now, and that's going to give me a nice effect where it looks like the legs are actually protruding out of the abdomen here. So just like before, I want that curvature of the tip of this to go away from the hook. I'm going to measure this, and I want this to go just past the beginning of that tail, because when I tie this in, it's going to flare it out just a little bit. Okay, so I always go in front, tie it in, and then secure it, lock it in place at the front. Okay, so there's my first leg. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to repeat that same process on this other side. Again, just barely past that hook point or the tailing point there. Okay, I can tighten that down. I can kind of slide that leg so that it sits where I need it to be. I want it right on the top side, kind of at a 3/4 there. Okay, so I actually want those legs to kind of flare out just a little bit, so you can see that nice profile there. Okay, and then you can see the tail has that nice split too. This is going to give me nice proportions to this fly here. Now this is how I get the effect of those legs coming out of the abdomen. I'm going to put another little bit of wax on. It's a few more, it's an extra step, but I think the benefit of this step and how it looks, I like a lot, and it's very effective. So now I'm going to take and finish off my thorax here. I'm going to wrap over the top of those legs. Okay, so now you can really see how that just looks like it's poking right out of the abdomen. Okay, I'm going to take, and now I'm ready to tie in my hackle. So the hackle that I'm going to be using is this Whiting Red Label Medium Ginger. Okay, this is a hen saddle. So I'm going to take and pull one of these out of here. This saddle is amazing. It's got tons and tons of purple or size 14s in it. Okay, so you can see I've got lots of fuzz here. I don't need any of that fuzz, so I'm just going to strip all that fuzz out. I don't need to strip all that because I'm going to trim off this stem. Okay, now when I tie this in, I'm going to tie it in so the fibers are all going down in a natural curvature. You can see how they're already going down. The reason being is when I wrap this, that curvature is going to force those fibers to the rear, to the back of this fly. Okay, and that's going to help keep a nice clean soft hackle without having to push and clean everything up at the end. Now because I am going to wrap away from me, I'm actually going to clean off the hackle fibers on one side of this feather here, and it's the side that's going to lay flush against the hook shank. And the reason I do this, it takes just a few extra seconds, but I save my time in the end, is now this clean stem is going to wrap up against, and I'm not going to have hackle fibers trying to push and protrude every which way. So I have a nice clean wrap. Okay, so here you have my tie-in point. Okay, you can clip that down. I don't clip it yet. I'm going to take and tie this in right here on the side. I'm going to go in front twice, and then I'm going to pull it back and in front one more time, and this is going to kind of help secure that stem in place. Now I'm going to trim that down, trim my stem down. Okay, I'm going to take my hackle pliers again. Now I want to take my thread, I want that out of the way, because this is I'm going to naturally palmer this hackle rearwards without having to clean it up in the end. Okay, so I'm going to palmer every one of these. So every wrap I'm going to make sure I'm not capturing and trapping any of the fibers. I'm constantly doctoring and preening these hackle fibers so I can see how they're going to look. I try and flare them out, fan them out some. I'm going to wrap that, and I've got that last wrap right there. Okay, so now I haven't caught any of the fibers with my stem, so I've got a nice clean wrap. I want to make sure and do the same as I'm cleaning up that with my hackle. So I locked it in twice in behind it, then I pull the fibers hackle stem backwards, and I finish locking that in front. Now I can take and trim out those fibers, so you can see without having to pull this back and wrap over the top to help push those fibers rearward, they naturally are going to do that state. Okay, so I just push those back just a little bit. Now I'm just going to build up a collar. I can build this collar up right here in between the hackle and the bead with a little bit of dubbing. I prefer to use just a thread. Okay, so I'm going to build that out just a little bit. Now I'm going to take my Loon Egonomical whip finish tool here, and we're going to do a 3-turn whip. You can do as many or as few as you want. 3 is just kind of my number. Okay, again, I don't want to trap any of those hackle fibers, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, with my Egonomical Loon whip finisher, I've got this little snip tool at the end. So I'm going to take, without getting scissors, I'm going to snip that off. Now I'm ready to go fish this fly if I want, or I can take and protect this bead from chipping by either putting nail polish on it, or I can put a little bit of UV resin. So tonight we're going to put some UV resin, and this is going to do 2 things. It's going to protect my bead from any kind of chipping immediately, and it's going to secure that knot. So you're going to get better results protecting your bead with nail polish remover versus a UV resin. But the UV resin kind of gives it that added little pop on this Fluoro bead, which I really like. So I take the cons of that because I like the pro side of it better. So I'm just going to smooth that out, making sure I go up into the thread base, and then make sure I clean off my bodkin. Now I'm just going to cure that resin. And there you have it. Purple Haze Soft Hackle Nymph. You guys have a great evening. Make sure and hit the subscribe button, then the bell, and hit all so you can receive all notifications from us. And don't forget to hit thumbs up and comment on our posts.